If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
So it is officially postseason time in the NBA, and for the Knicks, that means a Game 1 matchup with the Cleveland Cavaliers Saturday at 6 p.m. The Knicks closed the regular season on Sunday with a loss to the Indiana Pacers at home. New York finished the season with a record of 47-35, good enough to earn a fifth seed in the Eastern Conference. That is a 10-win improvement from the previous season, so definitely a step in the right direction for the Knicks after a very disappointing 2022 campaign. The Cavs, meanwhile, finished their season with a 51-31 record, a 7-win improvement from the previous season. Their season wrapped up on Sunday also with a loss to the Hornets. Both teams rested their stars in the season finale as they were just kind of gearing up for this game. So I want to take this conversation to kind of maybe take a step back and look back at what we've seen from the Knicks this season. How were they able, Tommy, in your eyes, to exceed expectations, get that 10-win improvement? A lot of the over-under numbers in Vegas for the season was setting them around 38, 39 wins. For them to reach 47, definitely a big accomplishment. How are they able to do that?
Yeah, I think you got to start with Jalen Brunson, obviously. I mean, he was the big free agent acquisition. Really, other than Hardenstein, all the rotation players were on this prior season's roster. So obviously the addition of Brunson, and obviously he exceeded expectations in terms of points per game and efficiency and all that other stuff. But that doesn't even capture the real true impact that he had on this team, had on this locker room, had in practice sessions, had in film sessions. Everyone you talk to on the team, to a man, has nothing but glowing things to say. Your coaching staff, front office, players, about the immediate impact Jalen Brunson had, and it manifested itself in the win total, the competitiveness of the team. Obviously, top 5 in the league in offensive efficiency, can be directly attributed to that. So while there was a lot of other important pieces, and Randall deserves a ton of credit for having a huge bounce back season. We'll talk about IQ going from really emerging as the likely sixth man, the potential sixth man of the year. Grimes establishing himself as a solid NBA starting shooting guard. The addition of Josh Hart at the deadline. The two-headed monster Mitchell Robinson playing the best of his career. Isaiah Hardenstein, a very competent backup, forming arguably the best 1-2 punch at the center and backup center position. All those things should all be weighed and factored into the totality of a 47-win season. But if we are talking about one particular player, I think Brunson gets the lion's share of credit from that respect.
Totally agree. Can't dispute or refute anything regarding Jalen Brunson being the main reason for the Knicks being able to exceed those expectations. It's crazy that, we talked for now almost 2 decades how much of a weakness the Knicks point guard position was. And to see them have well above average, good to elite level point guard play, and what that meant for this team and what it meant for this franchise, and how it just changed things on the dime, just shows you what we've been saying for a long time, is how important the point guard position is in the NBA. If you don't have one, you're basically playing with your hand tied behind your back. And that's what Nick's been doing for some time. So what Jalen Brunson's been able to do, obviously a big piece. But I think another piece I don't want to get lost in the shuffle with this Knicks season is the team's great job of development of their young players and embracing their young players and getting these guys real minutes. We've talked about Quentin Grimes and his insertion into the starting lineup. It's crazy to think that to start the season, that was a very debated question. Evan Fournier was the starting shooting guard coming out of training camp. It's something that was mind-boggling to me and was maddening to me. But Evan Fournier was starting. Derrick Rose was getting key minutes still. And, Cam Reddish was here. He's a young player, obviously, but Cam Reddish was here. And a lot of the guys that Knicks had drafted, some of the guys that they should have been prioritizing, really weren't getting the kind of minutes that they should have been. IQ was not getting the kind of minutes he should have been. McBride was, of course, buried under the bench. Quentin Grimes was getting very limited minutes coming off of the foot injury he dealt with in training camp. And to see how those guys have improved over the course of this season, the Knicks don't get to 47 wins if they don't see that jump. If they're still playing Rose and Fournier. I don't want to bang on those guys. Those guys are great professionals, and there's no beef at all for me from saying that. But if they're still playing those guys, April 11th, as we record this podcast, I don't think you're talking about the Knicks in the 5th seed for sure. You're probably talking about them playing in a play-in, maybe, and they're probably playing against the Bulls or the Raptors. I mean, they're probably the 9th or 10th team in this situation. I mean, that this whole season turned when the rotation changed. So that's a credit to this organization, credit to the front office, credit to Thibodeau for understanding that had to happen for sure. And the development that we've seen in season of these players also a major credit to Thibodeau and his coaching staff, because Emmanuel quickly going from basically nowhere on the stratosphere, he wasn't on the map when it came to 6 Man of the Year candidates, and now comes in as we enter this postseason as the favorite to win the award. I mean, again, Quentin Grimes, we talk about how he's been shooting the ball so incredibly well of late. You've seen McBride come in and out of the rotation. Doesn't matter if he's playing or playing not. He's always ready to play. He's always ready to defend. Like, these guys being put into the rotation. Jericho Sims giving these guys quality minutes when guys like Mitchell Robinson had gone down. Like, I do want to make sure that is something that is noted in terms of the importance of those guys and how that helped the Knicks get to this next level.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking, I think the front office again deserves a lot of credit for trading away Alex Burks and Nerlens Noel and not re-signing Taj Gibson and those type of things where, almost forced Tibbs' hands in certain respects. And he just didn't have those guys that he was comfortable with leaning on. And as a result, we saw increased, playing time for Emmanuel quickly, instead of, being on the bench behind Alex Burks the second half of last season. Obviously, a ton more minutes for Quentin Grimes. So those are things that are all there. And, you mentioned the starting point guard position. And again, it's worth noting. Here's the starting point guards. In opening night, starting point guard, 2011, Tony Douglas. 2012, Ray Felton. 2013, Pablo Prigioni. 2014, Shane Larkin. 2015, Jose Calderon. 2016, D. Rose. 2017, Ramon Sessions. 2018, Trey Burke. 2019, Alonzo Trier. 2020, Elfrid Payton. 2021, the skeleton of Kemba Walker, and then you bring in Jalen Brunson, and the change is so dramatic and so incredible. So all those things certainly factor in, and finally having somebody to captain the ship on the floor, and Jalen Brunson has done that again, incredibly important.
Hearing that list of journeyman point guards reminded me of like seeing the list of Cleveland Browns quarterbacks over the last 20 some odd years. I mean, that it's kind of odd, I think partly because like the Knicks have had so many issues for the last 20 years. Like, I feel like amongst Knicks fans, they've talked a lot about the point guards, but I don't think that's really been talked about like amongst like the rest of the NBA kind of world, the national scene, in terms of what's been wrong with the organization. Point guard didn't get mentioned nearly as much. I think that's why those that were very skeptical of the Brunson signing, I think that's why they missed the boat so much. I think because they didn't understand how much again, good to great point guard play would change everything for this team, and that's what we've seen this season. So I thought this was something interesting. We heard from RJ Barrett today as we record this podcast on Tuesday, because there are great feels with this team. A lot of people are excited about this team, but there are some fans that are scarred from what happened back in 2021 when the We Here Knicks team got the 4th seed, home field advantage. Atlanta comes in and Trey Burke kind of burns down the Garden. Like, there are some people that are concerned, saying, hey, we've seen this movie before, like, why should we believe in this team as opposed to 2021? Here's what RJ Barrett had to say on that.
I think just one, us having that experience already, it helps, as well as just continuing to work. And we're a lot better than we were. Like, the guys that are on this team that were in that playoff run, we've all grown and we've all gotten better. So that helps. Like I said, the experience helps, and just the guys that we have now, in addition, things been working well, and we just been getting better as a team. So I think we'll be okay.
So RJ there says that we're a better team. The players that were there are better from that experience. They've gotten better individually, and they've added guys since then that make this team different than the 2021 team that struggled in the first round. I think he's right. I 100% agree. I think that if you're a Knicks fan that's concerned about what happened in 2021, that this team are frauds, I think you got to stop living in the past. I think that this is a team that if they don't win, it's not going to be because, oh, this team are frauds. I think they're playing against a team that, quite frankly, may be more talented than that Atlanta Hawks team that they played 2 years ago. But this Knicks team is also way more talented than the Knicks team that played that Hawks team in 2021. So what do you think makes this Knicks team different from the 2021 team in your eyes? Or do you think there's a big difference?
There's a huge difference. 2 words. Alfred Payton. That was
Yeah.
that was the Knicks starting point guard those first 2 games, who's out of the NBA and was out of the NBA shortly thereafter. Nerlens Noel started at center for that Knicks team. Taj Gibson averaged 27. I'm looking at it right now. 27.6 minutes per game that series. Reggie Bullock 32.5 minutes. Derrick Rose 35 minutes. And Rose played well, so this is not to knock, Bullock or Rose but Alfred Payton, wasn't a quality starting point guard in the NBA as evidenced by the fact that he was out of the starting lineup and the rotation completely by the end of the series. Having a healthy Mitchell Robinson starting at center, backed up by Isaiah Hartenstein, is a little bit better. And we all love Taj Gibson, is better than the combo of Taj Gibson and Nerlens Noel. Replacing Alfred Payton with Jalen Brunson is I mean, come on, it's leaps and bounds, and that's not even getting into the bench. The combo of IQ, Hart, Obi Toppin, all those players. Just what's kind of incredible is I'm just looking at those series minutes now, and Obi averaged 13.1 minutes. That was his rookie year. He may play less in his third season.
It's crazy, I know. Right? That's coming off of 34 in the finale against Indiana.
And that's after he averaged 25, 5 and 5 in the last 5 games or so. But listen, to your point, the Cavs are far more talented than that Atlanta Hawks team was, and the Knicks certainly can get beat. Their odds are that Vegas has them installed as a pretty significant, the Cavs as a favorite. Their last I saw, I think, was minus 210. Basically, the implied odds are 67% chance of the Cavs winning the series. That's kind of is what it is, which makes sense. I mean, they have a very talented roster with the all NBA shooting guard, and the Knicks have their own issues. I think it's a lot closer than 50-50. We'll talk about it as the series goes on. Yes, listen, there's, New York fans are going to be naturally pessimistic. New York teams haven't had a lot of success here. Certainly the Knicks haven't had a lot of success. The last time they got to this point, last time they got in the dance, they tripped and stumbled and were eliminated within 5 games. And again, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if they get eliminated in 5 close games this season. The Cavs are just that talented, but again, it won't. But make no mistake that this team is far more talented, and the future is far brighter than it was in 2021.
Yeah, 2021, it was like that was a ragtag group of guys on 1-year deals, guys who were kind of on their last legs. Like Alec Burks, like he was a guy where if he didn't play well that season, he might have been out of the league. You mentioned Alfred Payton. He was next year basically living on the Phoenix Suns bench before he eventually was jettisoned away. Now he's out of the league. Like that was a different team. Nerlens Noel essentially out of the league right now. Like it was an entirely different team. Those guys played extremely hard. They played extremely motivated, and they bought in. And it does show you that if a team can buy into a coach's philosophy and they go out there and play hard every night, they can rack up wins in the regular season. That's what that team is.
Yes.
This is a different animal. Again, you got Jalen Brunson, who's a legit star at the point guard. You got Julius Randle, who now doesn't have the pressure of having to do everything like he was in that first year, and now he can kind of have that pressure alleviated by a player like Brunson. That goes a long way. And then, like RJ mentioned, like all those young guys you're talking about, all of them are much better than they were. I mean, the biggest one being Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, Quickley was a spark plug, really nice player at that rookie season he had, but I mean, his efficiency, his defense, his passing, his floor leadership, like everything is so exponentially better. So like when you look, and then not to mention, Josh Hart replaces someone like a Bullock, something like that. Like I mean, it's night and day some of these changes. So yeah, this is a much better team, and I think that this is a team that is younger, more athletic, And I think that would be more up to the challenge of playing in this first round matchup. I definitely feel that way.
Yeah, and also you make a good point. In the regular season, you can win games on effort and
Yep.
preparedness and hunger, and you can kind of eke out those wins, especially in that shortened 2021 season coming off the
Yeah.
pandemic bubble.
Exactly.
It's all
Yeah.
jumbled.
Guys were missing games because of COVID, and yeah.
The Knicks were incredibly lucky health wise that season, unlike many teams. So yeah, that team is far. This team has even with Randall sitting out the last how many ever games, and Brunson sitting out the multiple for multiple stretches and games in the second half of the season. The talent is night and day, and not to mention the starting lineup, but just guys coming off the bench. Again, and we'll talk about it, in the previewing the series. That's where the Knicks can, if they are going to win the series, I think that's going to be a major factor at the start of the second quarter, start of the fourth quarter. While the Cavs are incredibly talented, 1 through 5, 1 through 6, Knicks can take advantage when those second units are on the floor.
I asked a question to start this podcast, and I asked a question to Ken.
What's so good about Cleveland?
What is so good about Cleveland? I mean, it's in a serious manner, because like we have a Cleveland Cavaliers team that won 51 games. We know Donovan Mitchell very well, unfortunately, because of what happened over the summer, and we followed him over the course of the season, where he's had probably the best season of his career. Evan Mobley could be one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year. Darius Garland, a very talented point guard, former All-Star from the year before. Jared Allen used to play in Brooklyn, played in the city, another former All-Star. Who are these Cleveland Cavaliers? What do Knicks fans have to look forward to or be worried about coming into this series?
Started doing the preview for my newsletter on Monday, so I was digging into the numbers, and this is a really good team, man. Like I know casual, Knick fans, like that even fans that are heavily invested in the NBA, names like Evan Mobley and even the Jared Allens and Isaac Okoros and Darius Garland, familiar with them. We know Mitchell, of course, but the way they play together, well coached team by Bickerstaff, and first and foremost, these guys defend, man, like really at a very high level. And then you watch tape, and it's stunning. How well they cover space and challenge shooters, and the proofs in the pudding. First in the NBA in opponent's point per game, only team in the NBA average, that allows fewer than 107 points per contest. First in the NBA in defensive rating, only team in the NBA allowing fewer than 110 points per 100 possessions. Held teams under 100 points 24 times this season. In today's NBA, that says an awful lot. Second in the NBA net rating, basically, powered by this defense. But they're also quality shooting. They had the second highest field goal percentage in franchise history this season. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's the head of the snake in that respect, but Darius Garland is also an incredibly talented offensive player. And the Cavs are one of just 3 teams, the Sixers and the Celtics being the other 2, to rank in the top 10 in the NBA in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They were 8th in the NBA in offensive efficiency at 115.5 points per game. 17. The other thing is, even when they get down, they can come back. 17 wins this season when trailing by at least 10 points. So I think that could kind of be a theme, as you'll see, the Cavs race ahead and get out to a big lead. Knicks will come back and fight it off. If the Knicks get out ahead, they're going to let the Cavs back in the game. It's going to be a game of runs, and the Cavs have shown that well. So yeah, we can kind of get into specifics, and we'll do a little bit today and more as the week drags on. But just looking in totality, this is a really talented team, a very good team. They play well both sides of the floor. And when all guys are healthy, we'll see if Isaac Okoro, who's dealing with a knee injury, he's their starting small forward when healthy. He'll probably be tasked with guarding. They'll probably put him on Jalen Brunson. We'll talk about how that cross matchups could impact the rest of the team, and why I think because of that, one of the 2 smaller guards is going to be, they're going to try to hide him on RJ Barrett, basically daring Barrett to shoot. So we'll talk about all that stuff, and we'll talk about how that'll impact it. But make no mistake, big picture, this is not a team that lucked into the 4 seed. This is not
No.
this is not a one-man show with, you
Yeah.
stop Donovan Mitchell, you're going to win the series. They have a ton of guys. They're coached well. They're unselfish. They compete defensively, a lot like the Knicks in certain respects. They don't have a top 5 player. They don't have a top 10 player in the NBA, but they have a lot of good pieces that perform well together. Good chemistry, good cohesion, especially on the defensive end. And it's going to make it for it's going to make the Knicks. If the Knicks are going to win this series, they're going to have to play their best basketball. They can't, only play offense. They can't, get by playing just good defense and missing shots. Knicks are going to have to play as well as they played all season to knock this team off.
Yeah, this is going to be a tall task. And I think I love that you really started with defense, because I think for the people, I don't want to call them like, people don't follow or casual,
Right.
but I think people will just kind of watch this team and kind of look at the roster and say, oh, okay, Donovan Mitchell, stats, offense,
Yep.
scoring.
Yep.
And they can score the ball, no question about that. But I mean, their defense is borderline scary. I mean, they're first in the NBA in 3-pointers allowed in terms of fewest. Second in the NBA in 3-pointers made. So good luck getting 3-point shots up against this team. Good luck scoring around the rim against this team with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. It's interesting because Garland and Mitchell have been maligned throughout their career for their defense.
Yep.
But the defense that they have created in Cleveland with those two bigs playing down low, and then the other guys that kind of come in, whether it's Okoro, whether it's Lamar Stevens, some of these other guys, like they have these other defenders that can kind of hide these guys, or they can kind of funnel these star guards on other teams to these twin towers, and they struggle. And what they do have, maybe why they may not be big or strong, they are quick, so they can get out the shooters. They can rotate really well, as you mentioned. So this is a extremely good defensive team, which makes this matchup really interesting because the Knicks are one of the best offensive teams in the NBA, which I think is surprises people when you think of Tom Thibodeau teams. But this is a team that is, I think I saw the Knicks Muse had it as the 4th best offensive rating in NBA history, which is kind of crazy to think about. But with the way the Knicks rebound, particularly how many offensive opportunities they get from the offensive glass and the way they're able to be efficient in the half court, it presents a problem for a lot of teams. And what I expect to see in this series is a lot of doubling of Jalen Brunson. I thought what Biggerstaff said after the game, I think their finale game, when they talked about previewing the series, here's what he said about Jalen Brunson real quick and what he did to them the last time they played when he had 48.
Game that Jalen Brunson had put us on high alert. And, I think that's a good thing for us, to have that appropriate fear of your opponent. So again, we'll use it, we'll watch the film, we'll figure it out, and we'll be better.
That sounds like a guy who is not going to let Jalen Brunson beat them. To me, that sounds like a guy who said, okay, we saw what Jalen Brunson can do. We know he's a bad man. We're not going to, disrespect him by playing him single coverage. So I think if you're the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau, that coaching staff, we know some of Thibodeau's greatest weaknesses throughout his career has been adjustments and making adjustments quickly. They have to adjust quickly to what happens when they force the ball out of Brunson's hands, because that is definitely going to be plan A for Cleveland. And I think Knicks will be able to get good shots if they do that. They tried to do it a little bit in the second half of that game they played a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, you're playing a team is not as much preparation as a game like game one, but they tried to do it a little bit, and we saw Nick got some great shots, and Grimes had a big game. A lot of other guys had went off in that game. The Knicks got to be ready for that, and it means that these other ancillary pieces beyond Randall have to be ready to shoot and have to be ready to score. You mentioned RJ Barrett; he's been a nightmare from behind the three. Whether it's him deciding to take it to the basket or finding a way to make these shots, like these guys can't be ducks when they get the ball, because I think Brunson's going to have to give it up a lot in this series.
Absolutely. I will note that Okoro did not play in that 48-point game.
Yes.
And Bickerstaff did mention that. What was it?
I was going to say, I mean, he has a sleeve on his knee. I know he was shooting in practice. I don't think he was a full participant either from what I saw today. So he's also kind of up in the air.
Agreed. It's and understandably so. Neither Bickerstaff's going to tell you how Okoro's doing.
Right.
Tibbs is not going to tell you how Randall's doing. We'll talk about that in the next
Yeah.
segment. They're going to be, again, if you're Tibbs, you want Bickerstaff and his staff to spend time preparing if Obi Toppin's going to start game one, if Julian Randall's going to start game one. You want to put that kind of uncertainty and make them dedicate time to something that they may not see. Yada yada yada. So Cavs will do the same. So just as far as Okoro is concerned, Bickerstaff did mention, hopefully we'll get him back. It would be a big boost, without saying he's coming back, hinting that if he's back, that's the guy that's going to be tasked with slowing down Jalen Brunson. So it certainly gives him more options. And then, yeah, but I agree with you. Clearly, as he mentioned, that 48-point outburst was a wake up call. And they're not going to, ideally, there's two schools of thought though, and the Knicks will face the same thing. Do you throw two guys at Donovan Mitchell and prevent him from beating you single-handedly, or do you let him get his 44 points and prevent anybody else from getting going? These are conversations that Knicks fans have had for 30 years. When do you let Jordan get 55 and not let Pippen score, and B.J. Armstrong get open shots, and Steve Kerr and John Paxson, etc. It didn't work. Jordan always found a way, and Donovan Mitchell certainly isn't on that level. But these are conversations that you have, and it'll be had after game one and after game two, and when the guy's a bad game, and these are the type of adjustments. But yeah, and again, we'll talk about it more in depth. But it's why to me, and just it's kind of thinking ahead. It's why RJ Barrett to me is the X factor in the series. If they're going to double team Brunson, then Randall's going to get more shots. But again, you're not going to let a guy that the team's leading scorer, Julius Randle, 25 points, get easy looks either. Night in, night out. Exactly. I suspect they will dare and put up a big sign and say, RJ Barrett, we are daring you to shoot 3-pointers. Barrett shooting 22% over the last month from downtown, really struggled with his shot, with his confidence. Does Barrett take those threes? Can he make them? Or does he use that distance and that spacing as a red carpet into the lane, get to the basket, and make things happen that way, create shots for himself, create shots for his teammates, bully ball. If he's got a smaller defender on him, be it Mitchell or Garland, can he get those guys in foul trouble? Can he post up, work the high post, work the low post, where he's comfortable operating from, and at least make those guys work on the defensive end? Even better if he can draw foul trouble, because as we talked about, one of the biggest advantages the Knicks have is their depth. If Brunson gets in foul trouble or is not as effective, IQ comes in. If Grimes or Barrett is struggling, Hart comes in, and he's probably an upgrade over both those guys, or can be on any given night. Whereas if the Cavs go to the bench, and Garland's not effective, but Garland has 2 fouls, in the first 7 minutes, then you have to rely on Ricky Rubio, or Neto, Karis LeVert to play some point. But the point being, the Knicks, one of their greatest strengths is depth, whereas the Cavs, it's not the case. So all that stuff will be factored in, and that's what makes playoff series so fascinating. Night after night, quarter after quarter, adjustment to adjustment. It's why it's so much fun.
I love the playoffs. Love it. It's like a soap opera. It's like watching a movie. The twists and turns, changes. So many things will happen over the course of this series. It won't be fun, but
it's like we're spoiled nowadays because the show will drop on Netflix and you can binge 12 straight hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day, you'd have to Thursday night, you'd have to watch a show, then wait till the next Thursday night. That's what this playoff series is. Game one, you got to wait 72 hours for game two. We can talk about it, we can rehash it, we can preview, we can Monday morning quarterback, but we still have to wait. There's no spoiler alerts like you watched it. Now you just have to wait for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's my favorite time of the year. I love the NBA playoffs. My favorite. I mean, obviously basketball favorite sport, but it's my favorite postseason by far. So the fact that the Knicks are in it and they have a really competitive matchup here in the first round should be a lot of fun. Knicks, Cavs.